Hello, my name is Gia, and I'm a part of the Southern African campaign to dismantle corporate power. Yes, I know it's a mouthful, but simply put, we're a network of trade unions, popular organizations, and communities that live in places directly affected by corporate abuse. We keep a watchful eye on transnational corporations and find ways to resist them when they want to use our land and resources for their own greed. Here we are in NEWTOWN, Johannesburg, at the Permanent People's Tribunal. Each year for the past 3 years, the tribunal has come together to look at some of the worst cases from across the Southern African region. Cases that speak to the power of communities, like the Amadiba struggle in the Eastern Cape and the Makai people from Madagascar, where transnational corporations like Glencore, Vale, and Monsanto, aided and abetted, I'm sorry to say, by governments, have acted with impunity, and always, human misery and death is the result. The Permanent People's Tribunal is based on the tenets of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of Peoples, signed in 1976. It's independent from any state authorities, and it gives an opportunity for the rise of law from below. So community members present their own cases and present it forth to a jury panel that's not necessarily judges, but people that understand the issues. Over the next 15 minutes, we're going to hear some shocking testimonies from communities of corporate plunder and how they're resisting. Listening very carefully to the cases is a jury made up of some of the experts working in the field of social justice. At the end, the jury will produce a juror statement that will apply international human rights law to the cases. We begin with Lonmin mine in South Africa, where 34 striking mine workers were shot dead by police in front of the world's cameras. The miners were shot down for demanding a living wage of $12,500. This happened in 2012, over 6 years ago, and will always be remembered as the Marikana Massacre. Since the Commission of Inquiry, this is the first chance we've had to hear AMCU's uncensored version of events and to see if there has been any justice for the victims.
Umyeni wam nguJackson Lehopa ebengumsebenzi waselonmi, ebengumntu othanda ikhaya lakhe nabantwana bakhe, ebengumntu isikhathi esininzi engafuni ukuphela ekhaya ayojonga abantwana, bengekho nto asishodisa ngayo nasekhaya. Bendingumama ke mna behlala ekhaya, kungumyeni wam ohlala apho osebenzayo, esithumelela imali, ekhulisa abantwana bakhe kakuhle. So ke ngoku kwafika ilanga lakhe loba makasweleka adutyulwe ngamapolisa. Bengumntu orayithi umyeni wam kakhulu, benganguye umntu onodlame othanda ukulwa. Babengagqekezi izishophini, bengagqekezi imizi yabantu, bengathathi into zabantu ngenkani, bengavali imigwaqo, bezihlalele nje belindele umqeshi. Umqeshi wabona ukuthi makababizele amapolisa ababulale.
So often in these testimonies, we find that TNCs are only able to behave the way they do because they work together with states to protect joint interests. In Lonmin's case, at the time of the massacre, the current president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, was a Lonmin shareholder and non-executive board member of the mining company. The Marikana Commission of Inquiry exonerated politicians, and this continues to be a bone of contention.
Indeed, you Western countries, you still have power over us. We will protect your interest even we kill our own. Workers were killed and the government to date hasn't even apologized.
Lonmin akakakhiphanga lutho. Akukho nto nje iLonmin kahle nje iyas-distance kuyo yonke lento le. Sibonisa ngoba nyaka nonyaka sivamise ukwenza i-commemoration nge-16 zika-August. Abababikho nasentabeni kodwa ezinye inhlangano zibakhona. Just nje ukuba khona noma ngabe mhlamba abasaxolisanga nje uma ngabe uthi sorry kubonakale uze sibonisane.
Since the commission ended, 17 of the Marikana strikers are facing serious charges and long jail sentences.
Kuyasimangaza-ke ukuthi abantu bona bebedutshulwa kube yibona abaseyinkantolo. Mhlambe yihamba ngale nto ukuthi the government will cover, because it's just a question of thina asinarhulumente ongasikhavela ngoba i-union esingaphansi kwayo ayiqhemile.
Lonmin has made huge profits over the years, but a study by economists has revealed that most of this was smuggled illegally out of the country via tax evasion, wage evasion, and profit shifting. Here's how they do it.
They would say, okay, look, like the South African affiliate, it has to pay for insurance fees. And the thing is, the trick is that there was no real insurance services behind. It was all the same companies selling to each other things, but so to legitimate the fact that they would send the profit abroad, they would call it first insurance fee. The second one was management fees. So they would say that the South African affiliate has to pay to another subsidiary of Lonmin, but that means that the South African affiliate that was really creating the value was deprived of this money. And so every time it's like only 1-2% of the income of the South African affiliate. But altogether, this is a huge amount of money. It means that they could have been able to building thousands of houses for local community as promised and pay a living wage for the Lonmin's worker. So all this dispute around the fact that no, your demands are unaffordable, we can't afford to pay you better, we can't afford to make this SLP happen, is a lie.
Lonmin stands accused of failing to fulfill its legal obligation of putting a tiny bit of its profits into building decent housing and infrastructure for the communities living next to the mine. And what is depressing is because they refuse to do this, all the terrible social conditions that led to the Marikana Massacre are still there.
Angathi kusezagwini nje akho nqubekela phambili. Kuyafana nje umahluko awukho nomncane endiubonayo mna pha eVanal Kopa andiboni mahluko kusafana namanje so 2012 namanje kusafana angathi futhi kuya kuba worse.
Indawo le enkaningi akuna-tar road. In fact uma ungaya eMarikana kunzima ukubona izindlu zezitina, into ongayibona yimikhukhu. Akho nto njengakho nje eLonmin ithi nayi into esiyakhile, ayikho.
Our governments have become more accountable to the transnational corporations and to their citizens who elected them in the first place.
When one looks at the question of accountability, the role of the state is to protect the rights of victims and to protect the rights of communities. And when the state becomes part of the group that begins to deprive communities of their rights, then you are living and working in a very dangerous world, because the state can unleash forces against you, which can also result in extraordinary violence. And so in dealing with the mining question in the coming year, we're going to have to be very careful to make sure that what we saw in Marikana doesn't actually happen again.
The second case heard at the tribunal is that of Inga 3 Dam in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The dam will be located at the lower basin of the Congo River, which holds nearly 30% of Africa's fresh surface water. In the 70s and 80s, the DRC government built 2 large hydroelectric dams, Inga 1 and 2. Even though there were promised benefits, Inga 1 and 2 proved to be disastrous for the clans who used this land.
Ngai kombo na ngai Angelique, Fwezolo Ntimba Angelique. Nabotama na Inga, nazamwa na Inga. Franchement, journée wana nalalaki malamu te, tango nayokaki ke mokonzi na biso asigné ba accord wana ya Inga 3. Biso na Inga neti ngai natekaka mbisi ya mai. Vraiment mbisi ezalaki ebele. Mboka mobimba ekoma ekoya solo ya mbisi. Kumoko eza réservé pour ba poisson. Mais basali ndenge nini bazui ba tellement ba deviaki mai na misala na bango, bazui ba bele na mabanga ba finiki kuwana. Ya barrage passe kota. Pêcher akoma mutu apasi bakoma koseka ye, bana pêcheur batanga kalisusu te. Bana batanga kalisusu te bana pêcheur. Ba pêcheur bakoma ba irresponsable. Pona nini? kozwa ekoma ya muke.
Ava batunga Inga ento fa uzingila na bilanga. Vanda sala bilanga, toke sala ka fioti, toke baka mingi. Mais depuis bamukusa tunga Inga 1, Inga 2, mwaye tobola baka de bima na kata bilanga ikeleve. Samuna bisengo ina batungilaka Inga 1, Inga 2 yake na kubenda vitamine. Ya isamu na beto kuna bilanga mwaya kuza vitamine ou bien mwaya buta bien keleve. Maza beto te kunuaka ya imbi.
Nous prenons de l'eau qui ne sont pas potables, qui n'est pas potable.
Ina pompe mekakanga meka kwenda distance ya 7 km, 8 km et toke futuka pendant 2 jours, 3 jours beto meka banda kunwa maza ina ba diare na bana. Kura keleve. Mulenda tuba po kura délestage beto kena njungu ya kura me beto kena délestage le ni bénéfice beto kena kubaka na kura ngol.
Imaginez une population qui a déjà été affectée, dont les terres ont été accaparées et sans compensation, parce que le problème demeure entier jusqu'aujourd'hui. Les endroits coutumiers d'Inga continuent à réclamer des compensations pour les terres qui ont été accaparées pour ériger les sites d'Inga. Et imaginez ces communautés-là qui ont été déjà affectées par ces problèmes, être délocalisées encore. Donc c'est des gens qui seront doublement affectés. Et si déjà aujourd'hui leur vie est précaire, parce qu'il faut dire que c'est des communautés rurales qui vivent dans la pauvreté, et qui dépendent totalement de la terre pour vivre et dont les moyens de subsistance s'amenuisent au jour le jour.
The community must be asked for their consent before the trucks arrive to start digging, before the first decision is made, before the World Bank and the regional development banks start pumping money into this project. Before that, the community's consent is required.
The right to say no, that's the theme of this entire tribunal. So the legal principle that gives effect to the right to say no is what we call free, prior and informed consent.
If a company does not ask you your consent, then you can go to court and stop them.
Because if a community doesn't have the right to say no, then their opinions and input can be ignored. And I mean, we must accept that when a community is up against a mining company or the state, they don't have the same power as those other parties. And so the right to consent, in a sense, provides bargaining power to communities, power that they simply don't have in the normal course.
It is estimated that Inga 3 will displace over 30,000 people.
Le peuple, les clans, l'ethnie, la tribu est intimement lié à la terre. Sa vie est inséparable de la terre. La terre est mère. C'est ça, en fait, l'essence de la terre chez Congo. Être dépossédé de la terre, c'est être vidé de son sang, de toute son essence, de son être même. Et être dépossédé de la terre, c'est mourir.
Getting people to invest in Inga 3's estimated $14 billion price tag has been challenging. But with South Africa's treaty with the DRC to purchase 2,500 megawatts of electricity from Inga 3, key investors like Chinese Three Gorges and Spanish AEE Power Holdings can be reassured. But without South Africa in the mix, the Inga 3 project will be literally dead in the water.
L'Afrique du Sud est très impliquée dans le projet Inga 3 aujourd'hui parce que c'est un des acteurs clés qui donne vie au projet Inga 3. Qu'est-ce que je veux dire par là? Pour que Inga 3 puisse être réalisé aujourd'hui, il faut qu'il y ait des clients éligibles. Mais moi, l'impression que j'ai, c'est que c'est la population congolaise, comme aussi la population sud-africaine, qui vont payer le pot cassé. Si vous voyez sur, par exemple, les cartes qui sont tracées par rapport à la ligne de transmission, le courant va quitter Inga jusqu'en Afrique du Sud et sera sur l'étole, sur la tête de la population. Peut-être Inga, Kinshasa. À Kinshasa, on a un peu d'électricité. Kinshasa, Katanga, au Katanga, les miniers. Ce n'est même pas la population. Les miniers ont quelques mégawatts. Mais le Bandundu, le Kasaï et les autres coins, les gens ne verront pas cette électricité. Comme aussi en Afrique du Sud, ce n'est même pas la population qui va consommer, c'est plutôt le minier.
And being part of the jury, together with the other team, I felt that there's a mammoth task. There's a lot of work that's still to be done. The cases that we've had were just a minute. It was just a tip of an iceberg. There's many other cases, there's many other situations that we know of. And it is about our future, and we have to hold the kind of institutions responsible. People have got a right to say no, and I believe that's very fundamental, it's very important.
If they come with a project in our area and it is going to displace us, we, the landholders, must have the right to be able to protect not just our land, but our culture, because our culture is embedded in our land. So we demand the right to say no.
Donc, pour Nanga, non construction, il y a Inga 3 parce que nako bénéficier na ngone lo côté ni famille na kutu ba koko na biso ba kufa batikali ko mona bomengo ya mboka na biso te na mitu na vraiment to sala nini na mokili oyo.
Over the last 3 years, we've heard cases where communities have said that they haven't been consulted. And if consultation has taken place, it's just a smoke and mirrors exercise. Thus, we've decided to galvanize all this energy and develop the Right to Say No campaign. One of the highlights of the PPT process is the fact that communities have let us know that they're resisting and they're resilient. And therefore, the cases presented doesn't mean that it's only going to stop now. On top of that, the PPT process has not only created a platform for communities to learn from one another and develop solidarity, it's been an opportunity to let you know about corporate impunity.